Scott Cook, of course, is the founder and was at some, for a period of time, the CEO of Intuit. And he stayed around. Intuit's a 35-plus-year-old company, and he's around to this day. And I think his title is something like Chief Innovation Officer. But the reality is, like, I look at him as the product manager for Intuit, and he's done a lot of great things. But he really taught me the principle of customer empathy and the design thinking before it was named design thinking, right? He tells the story as he was inventing Quicken, right? The genesis of all of it was him watching his wife at the kitchen table struggling with paying the bills, and there was all this paper and this book and doing reconciliation, and it was all over the kitchen table. And he was doing something in the kitchen and just stopped and watched and saw her frustration. And it was like 1983, and it was the era of technology and computers, and he thought there's got to be a better way. And after many iterations, and he showed us the original. He still has the original business documents, the business the business plans, right? The first business plans of Quicken, and he launched Quicken from that. And so that story, and then many stories that come from that, are all grounded in this idea of design thinking, and this idea of starting first with customer observations, and and kind of every time asking yourself, what is surprising me? What pain am I seeing? And noting that down, and then the ability to kind of move from observation, and not just observation in a lab or in a studio, but in their environment. And because that's where it started for him, is to go to people's environments. And we even called these things follow me homes, because in consumer tax, it was a consumer product. So you would go to people's home to watch them work on their taxes. And then going from fundamentally understanding their pain point to then moving to that place where you have ideas, right? But if you go too narrow onto one idea, you might really fall short of some true innovation and some products that really do in fact create delight. And so he embodied that. The other thing that he really taught me was this idea that when you're facing a big problem, the reality is that there is probably someone out there that has already solved that problem, but in a different context. And so I started to just become obsessed with seeking for and trying to find analogs to the problems I was looking to solve. And so I would go meet with founders and heads of product for companies that were doing something similar in a different context. And I would bring those insights back to the team as a way to continue innovation and continue thinking. And so it was this idea of really working smart, and this idea of going slow and then going fast, right? And so to be thoughtful, to spend time on the whiteboard, to look at data, and to move away from surveys and not listen to what people say they're going to do, but actually measure behaviors. And it just shaped everything. And then as I was doing that, and by the way, there's a little bit of context about Intuit as well, which is he wasn't the CEO, and we had a different CEO that came from GE. And when you come from GE, you're hyper focused on Six Sigma and lean productions, and no waste and zero defects and all of that. And we kind of, for a period of time, moved away from innovation and designing for delight, and focusing way more on perfecting these products that ended up becoming stale, and they were efficient and they had zero bugs, but who cared? And so what he tried to bring back, and it was right during the time that I joined Intuit, and where he started to really spend time with the product and strategy teams, which is coming up with how you do it. And so just me spending firsthand, just face-to-face, in-person experience with him and customers, and watching how he does that and bringing in people from the outside to inspire us. Like he brought in the guy from that created the Apple Store, and how did they come up with that concept? Because at the time it was so fundamentally and dramatically different. And how did they? And so that just shaped me. But then Eric Ries came in with Lean Startup, and of course he didn't necessarily start the idea of Lean Startup, but as you know, but he really did a great job of articulating what it is, and giving us and providing us a vocabulary by which to talk about the idea of, hey, if we're working on something unknown, some unknown venture, we need a way of highlighting our biggest risks and testing those things first. And by the way, you could test these big assumptions without coding and wasting time. And that resonated with me so much. And so everything that I did, I took a lean startup plus design thinking approach, which is, once I've narrowed in on the problem, it was about then highlighting those big assumptions that we had where things were unknown. And then, as quickly as possibly building stuff, whether it was a video or whether it was this or that, of trying to really identify and de-risk, and then go into a place where when we're building with speed and agility, but also with confidence. And so I brought that to every team that I've been a part of since. And so those two guys, and Eric Ries a little bit more indirectly, I had met with him a couple of times, but it was really just studying his lectures and applying it to my own, and asking questions, and then reading his book again, and reading other authors that started to come out of that space, and just the premise of stop wasting people's time and building something that matters, and being in this era of, it's not a question now of can we build it, it's should we build it, and that just resonated with me so much. So I started to then have all these frameworks and these approaches that, as I brought to the team and led the team in that way, it brought a lot of confidence to the engineers and to the designers that we're going to do something, we're going to do it differently, and we're going to be much more successful, and we're going to learn, and we're going to become the team, the modern product team in any context. And so those, from a pure product management, of course, Marty Kagan, I've loved a lot of his writings, and but then, I go back to the great artists, the Michelangelos, right? The guys that, I think about this a lot, like the stories of Michelangelo dissecting cadavers to understanding the tissues and the fibers and the bones, so the idea of sweating those details so that he could really execute against his vision, and I love that kind of, if you're just visionary but you're not in the details, like you're gonna miss, you're gonna not execute, and so that's really shaped me. And then I think about the innovators. I just finished a book, this book about the Wright Brothers and the guys that built the Brooklyn Bridge, and determination and focus and innovation and trials and challenges, and then all the way up to breaking down how Disney movies are made, and reading like Creativity Inc. and understanding how to manage creativity. Like all of these things are huge influences on how I build my team and how I look at my team as my product, and how I try to create a space of safety, but also in a place where people can innovate, but also be able to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And so all of those people and books and experiences really have shaped me over the last, 15 plus years.